What is going on YouTube? This is Paris, and as you can see from the title of this video, I recently had the opportunity to fly up to San Francisco for a preview event for The Division 2. And to my great surprise, I assumed this event was going to be for the upcoming episode 3 content for year 1. But instead, we got to see the new expansion that's coming for the Division 2, and that is Warlords of New York. Yes, we are going back to New York for the Division 2 in year 2 with this huge expansion. So first and foremost, I want to thank Ubisoft and I want to thank Massive for the opportunity for providing for my travel and having me come up to this preview event to check out Warlords of New York. So let's just dive into this right away. You know, the Division 2 year 1, it had, in my opinion, probably the best launch of any of these type of open world RPG live service games, right? I mean, the launch of the Division 2 last March was fantastic. I mean, it was almost a year ago to the day that I'm recording this, so I went to the preview event for that. Fantastic launch. I just love the concept of Washington, D.C. I loved how they did the world tiers, the Black Tusk invasions. We had that raid in the first year, everything that came with that. And then we started running into some problems. We kind of ran out of things to do in the end game for the Division 2 in that first year, right? So there's been a lot of community feedback. There's been a lot of talks on State of the Game, just changes that they've been making to the game over the past year. And here we are now with this expansion going into year 2, Warlords of New York, which is kind of the culmination of everything from all the feedback of year 1. And I'm pretty excited to talk about this today. Got hands-on with the mission, but let's just kind of run down some of the things that I was able to see while I was at the event. And I'll have an interview at the end of this. I got to speak with a couple of the producers, Jesper, Chloe, who's the world content manager, and Nick, he's another producer over there at Ubisoft and Massive, to talk about the Division 2 and these upcoming changes with Warlords of New York. So like I said, we're going back to New York. We're going to Manhattan, and we're going to have 4 new zones. There's going to be 5 new playable missions. There's going to be 8 side missions, 8 control points. Some of the old factions from the Division 1 will be returning, so the cleaners are coming back, you know, etc. But they won't just be exact clones of what they were in the Division 1. They do have some upgrades, and you know, when you see some of the gameplay footage when I got to play, you'll see that in action. But you know, like I said, we're going back to New York, and it's not wintertime anymore. Now we're in the summer. This is actually happening 8 months after the virus outbreak that we go back. Now, this is an assumption on my part. I don't know, but I would assume what takes place in episode 3 will kind of be just a prelude that will have us go back to New York to do this Warlords of New York. So what's the big thing about Warlords of New York? Aaron Keener. We're going after Aaron Keener. We're going after him. But not only just him, he now has 4 rogue agent lieutenants. And the best way, and you'll hear this during the interview, I describe this as, it's almost like Mega Man, if you remember that back from the 80s, where we can attack, we can go after any of these 4 lieutenants in any order that we want, and they all have their own special skill. And when you see the mission that we did, you'll see that skill drop at the end. This one was like a decoy skill, but once you defeat that lieutenant, you then acquire that skill, and you're able to use that, you know, for yourself on your agent. So I thought that was pretty cool. And, you know, obviously the story and everything that will be associated with this Warlords of New York, I mean, we'll see how that plays out when we get hands-on with it here soon. I guess I'll just say the date now. The new expansion is going to drop March 3rd, 2019 will be the new expansion, and it will be $30. So this will be paid content. We'll have to purchase it, which I'll get into in just a minute. So like I said, the old factions are returning, but here's what excited me about this expansion and why I'm excited for the future of the Division 2. It's the game-changing improvements. If you guys have been watching some of the State of the Games the past few weeks, complete RPG overhaul is coming. They're doing a streamlining of the gear, and probably the 2 biggest things for me is meaningful loot. And you'll hear this again when we do the interview. We talk about this, is everything that you pick up has meaning now, right? We're not just stashing a bunch of junk in our vault and have no idea if we're actually going to use it. When you're picking it up, they're kind of simplifying the UI so you can easily identify talents and perks that you would want to take off of these weapons. or gear, and recalibrate them and overall improve your builds. And that brings me to the second point: build diversity. This was probably one of my biggest sticking points in the first year of the Division 2, is you had zero incentive to do various builds for your agent. There was really only one build you needed to do, and one build only, and that was high damage attack build. That's it. That's all you needed to do. And with that, you could solve any problem, any encounter that you had in the game, be it, control point, missions, side missions, or even the raid. Just get a high damage build and just go at it, and you could solve it. So they're really going to emphasize build diversity now, and make it so that you can have these skill builds, these heal builds, things of that nature. So we have some diversity with our agents. And my hope, again, I have no information on this, my hope is in a future raid, we're going to be forced to have different builds in there to solve various problems, things like that. And even in the mission that we're able to do with the final boss encounter, you guys will see some gameplay from that. I could see a scenario where some different builds may have mattered more in there. So I am excited to see how that's going to play out once the expansion comes out. So they're going to raise the level cap. Currently we're at 30. They're going to raise it to 40. And once we hit end game, we're also going to have SHD level progression. So that's where you can infinitely keep progressing once you hit the end game as far as your level cap goes. So again, I'll be excited to see how that plays out as well. I didn't really get any true real world examples of that during my hands-on time. Like I mentioned before, from the Rogue Agent Lieutenant, you're going to get 4 new skills that drop from that. The one that we got to see in the mission was a decoy skill that we'll be able to use. So a bunch of new weapons are coming, new exotics, new name items, new brand sets. Absolutely, this is going to be needed in year 2 of the Division 2, because again, there wasn't really anything to chase after you hit end game, and that was part of the problem. There wasn't anything exciting about the brand sets or the builds. They didn't have just enough unique talents or perks on them to make them stand out. The one example I always go to is the exotic chatterbox. That was kind of a long form quest that you had to get to acquire that. That exotic SMG had a unique perk on it, and it had a unique look to it. So if anyone saw you with it in the world, they knew exactly what you had to do to go get that weapon. And that's what I want to see more of as we go into year 2 of the Division 2. I want to see some weapon diversity. I want to see some brand set diversity with unique skills and perks on them that stand out, so that again, you have that instant recognition from your peers when they see you in the world to know what you had to go through to get that weapon. So I'm excited to see how that's going to play out. Now, one other thing that we're getting to is the Dark Zone. So again, we talk about this in the interview as well, but the Dark Zones are going to stay as they are. We're still going to have the 3 Dark Zones in Washington, D.C., so we're not getting a Dark Zone in New York. They are going to incentivize us to start going back to the Dark Zones. They've already implemented some of the matchmaking features to make sure, still going to be the 12-player cap in each Dark Zone, but they've implemented some of the matchmaking features to make sure that there's always people, matched in when we're going into the Dark Zones. But the one thing I say to them in the interview is, right now I don't have incentive to go to Dark Zone. What am I chasing in the Dark Zone? What unique thing is there in the Dark Zone for me to get? So what they're doing is now everything is going to be contaminated in the Dark Zone. So you have to extract everything out of the Dark Zone. There will not be any weapons that just drop in the Dark Zone that you can pick up. And even if you die, you get to keep them. You got to get everything out of there if you want to keep it. They're going to put unique weapons and gear inside the Dark Zone that you can only get there to incentivize you to want to go in and take that risk of extraction. So let's see how it plays out. I mean, I'm still not 100% convinced the current Dark Zone structure is the right way. I really wish they would unify. I was really hoping that maybe they just bring back the old New York Dark Zone, go back to the 24-player count. Again, go do these things of putting unique weapons and gear in there to make us go in. But I'm still concerned about the 12-player cap in there. But let's just see how it plays out. We'll see once the expansion gets here and all that stuff starts to get integrated. Now with the end game, One thing that we're going to see is they're going to add a legendary difficulty to some of the in-game content. So I'm very excited to see how that's going to come out, because another thing that I want to see is more challenge. And I talk about this in all the, these type of games that I like to play, is give me challenging things to do. Give me a higher difficulty. Force myself and my teammates to actually have to strategize when we're playing these games, where we come up with scenarios, make sure we got our right builds together, the right weapons, etc. So really excited to see how this legendary difficulty is going to play out once we get to the expansion as well. Now, here's where it gets interesting. They're introducing seasons into the Division 2. Example they talked about, we could see during a season like a 3-month mini campaign. They're adding a calendar of activities. They're adding leagues into the Division 2. Global events are returning to the Division 2. I'm so happy to see this. One of the things that really attracted me to the first division was when they implemented global events, which just, obviously had unique play things that happen in there, activities, things of that nature, like they would put in like some weird, for lack of a better term, like a weird perk in the world where, the closer you got to an enemy, the more it would drain your health, things like that. Just unique gameplay scenarios would come with these global events, and obviously the rewards that were attached to them back then was classified gear, things like that. So let's see what they're going to do with the global events in Division 2. So again, this is something else I'm excited to see how it's going to play out. But again, it all comes down to loot and gear. What is going to be the unique things? What are unique loot and rewards that we are chasing in these global events, and just overall in the game as we go into this new expansion? So again, it's great to hear that these things are coming. Let's see how they actually play out, in practice once they're implemented with year 2. So another thing, and this one's a little controversial for me because I have to bring Destiny into this, because this is just the real world example that I'm experiencing right now. Premium Battle Pass is coming for the Division 2. So again, something that you will need to purchase beyond just the expansion to participate in. Let's see how this plays out. Currently in Destiny 2, I'm not convinced it's 100% working the way that they intended it to work. It was great in the first season, but now that we're in season 2, we're kind of like, what are we doing? What's the incentive? Things like that. So let's see how the Premium Battle Pass will play out for the Division 2. Fingers crossed. I have no judgment either way, other than let's see what's tied to the Battle Pass. Why am I investing into it and purchasing it? Is the premium content coming from this Battle Pass actually worth my money? We'll just have to wait and see. And then finally, a new raid is coming this spring, and the raid is going to be called the Foundry. I did not mention this during the interview, and I apologize, but I had a question about this new raid. It is coming during the spring. There will be 2 difficulties of it. There will be a level 30 and a level 40 difficulty. And here's the reason why. Because one of my concerns with the raid is this raid was originally promised with episode 2. So it was supposed to be a part of the year 1 content. I feared that they were going to take the raid and gate it behind the expansion. So in other words, you'd have to spend $30 to experience this raid. That's not going to be the case. The level 40 raid is a part of the expansion. Yes. So you will have to obviously spend $30 to participate in it, but there will also be a level 30 raid for those of us that are saying, hey, I'm not sure I want to spend the money for the expansion right away. I want to see how it plays out, but you quote unquote owe me this raid from year 1. So you're going to get it at level 30. So you'll be able to participate in it and you'll be able to use it. So that's great. That's fantastic. That's all I cared about when it came to that. Just make sure the people that invested in the Division 2 for year 1 get the content that they were promised. I didn't care that it was delayed. I just cared that I was able to get it and not being forced to have to purchase the expansion. This is great news for people that are still going to be on the fence about the expansion right away at March 3rd. So, like I said, another good thing is you can skip. If you're new to the Division 2 and you just want to jump right into the expansion, you can skip directly to that. You can create an agent right at level 30, jump right into Warlords of New York, and not have to grind through all the Washington, D.C. content first. That's great for new players. Someone like myself, obviously, I've been playing the year 1 content. I'll just continue my agent right on into Warlords of New York. But hey, there will be people that'll be curious about this new content. Hey, Division 2 is going back to New York. Let's check it out. They go spend $30 on the expansion. Oh no, I have to grind through all the year one content. You won't have to do that. Only if you want to do that. And to be honest with you, as a player, I recommend doing it. I think the Division 2's year one content was great as far as going through the story, going through the world tiers, strongholds, all that of DC. And then maybe you jump into the New York content, or vice versa. Jump into New York first, experience all of that. Now you're curious about, hey, what's all this DC content that I missed? Now you can go back and experience that as well. And again, the thing about it is you will be able to bounce back and forth between DC and New York and experience all that content with your friends, go through all the missions, the side missions, the control points, everything that's going to be involved with that. So really excited to see, plus obviously there's going to be a lot of new apparel and cosmetic gear that drops. I'm assuming some of this will be tied to the battle pass stuff, but the thing that I'm taking away from all of this is year one owners, you're not going to get left behind, for the simple fact that all of these changes to the gear and the build diversity and the loot, most of the stuff is going to come to you, even if you don't purchase the expansion. But if you want to go to the new areas, if you want to go to New York, if you want to do those missions, you want to do those side missions, all the things that will be happening in New York, look, you're going to have to purchase the expansion pass. But again, you vote with your wallet. You vote with looking at, hey, if I'm not sure I want to get this day one, wait till idiots like me play it, see what we have to say, and then make your own judgments from there. But there will be content and things for you to do, even if you don't purchase this expansion day one. But I can tell you right now, from what I got to play, I got to explore the world a little bit. Then we got to of New York. Then we got to jump into that first mission. And after we jumped in the first mission, completed that, defeated the lieutenant, picked up his decoy skill. We also got to do a side mission, and to our great surprise, that side mission was really freaking cool. It was a lot of fun, and at the end, it required a little bit of strategy to actually complete. So I was happy to see that there was some difficulty to that, and we actually had to strategize. The mission that we did was called the Tombs, and Theo Parnell is the rogue agent that we had to take down. That mission, it felt very long form. It felt almost like we were going to a stronghold other than just a standard mission from year one of the Division 2. So that was good. Had some great length to it. Had some challenge to it, like you'll see with the boss fight. I mean, we had to actually start doing call outs and actually think about what we were doing to defeat the boss. So that's great. Not to mention, that was at the story difficulty. We're going to get the challenging difficulty. It sounds like we're going to get this legendary difficulty, things like that. So we're going to have reasons to jump back in and play. Some of the loot that dropped from it was like with the darkness, I think was the rifle that dropped from it. That was unique. These are cool things to do. We'll see how the Dark Zone stuff plays out. We'll see how the raid plays out. We'll see how just in the open world, how all this stuff plays out. But I can tell you guys right now, from what I did, from the 2 hours that I had hands on with this, had a lot of fun with it. It's good. This is what the Division 2 needed. It absolutely needed, and I just affectionately like to call it, this is their Taken King expansion with this Warlords of New York. This is what the game needed, where they're overhauling the game, they're simplifying the UI. There's still going to be some complexity under the hood, but the way that you interact it is going to be presented to you in a way that is simplified, so that it's going to be a little bit easier to understand. So again, we got to get some more hands-on with it, obviously, when the expansion drops, to see how all this stuff is going to be implemented. But from what Ubisoft and Massive showed me yesterday, I'm digging it. I'm really digging it. So couple other housekeeping notes here before we jump into the interview. So like I said, the expansion itself will drop on March 3rd, 2020. Episode 3 drops February 12th for year one pass holders, and then on the 19th for everyone else. So like I said, I kind of view episode 3 as being the prelude into what we're going to get with this expansion for the Division 2. So what I'll do right now is I'm going to jump into that interview with Jesper, Chloe, and Nick. We're going to basically talk about everything that I just talked about right now, but just heads up, I didn't get a chance. We ran out of time before we got into the raid discussion, so that's why I mentioned it now. Also PvP, you'll hear me mention PvP at the very end. We weren't able to get into PvP, so I talked to them offline about that. So here's the deal with PvP. No new maps at the start of the expansion. It's still going to be the current modes and the current PvP maps at the start of the expansion. They want to see how these builds and the loots and how everything works out with the gear overhaul and everything first, before they start trying to overhaul PvP. So that will be down the road. So that will be a conversation for another day. So the way I look at it is this: if you're going to invest in this expansion day one, you're doing it for the PvE content. You're doing it obviously for the new raid that's coming, if you want to play at the higher difficulties, and you're doing it because now we get to go back to New York. If you're doing this looking for PvP activity, I would suggest to wait, because they're going to wait and they want to see feedback on how all these changes are implemented to the world first. And look, we know game development, nothing is perfect. So there will be some things that they're going to have to tweak, and that's going to be up to us to provide that feedback on that. So again, it is a symbiotic relationship between developer and consumer, where we need to give feedback, they need to listen to it, and we need to be patient to give them time to actually implement it, which in my opinion, this is the culmination with Warlords of New York, of all the feedback we've been given for year one of Division 2. So let me stop talking now. We're going to go ahead and jump into that interview. This is Paris. Thank you guys for checking out this content. I really appreciate it. I'll probably have another video out where it will just be pure gameplay, where you can kind of see that tomb mission that we had. But again, thank you to Ubisoft. Thank you to Massive for having me out to check out this content. Like I said, this is Warlords of New York, new expansion for the Division 2 coming out on March 3rd, 2020. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it.